might doesn't make right, but might does make reality, and that's
exactly right.
it, right? Now, I did want to brush upon one thing where you were talking about, the dangers of a multicultural society, right? Where people no longer share values and they're not connected within the same community. You're absolutely correct. I mean, I would also like to point out that one of the reasons that I think that we have such a big immigration issue in this country is that corporations and NGOs work to push immigration because they need to prop up a failing welfare state. Like we have brought in...
But they're also propping up a failing birth rate as well.
I agree. That's what happens when you destroy resource accumulation.
No.
That's what happens when men start waiting until their 30s before they can finally start dating young women.
This is a point that I can engage with.
This is what happens when the dating market
is... This isn't the welfare state, though. This is the sexual revolution. This was 100% has to do with contraception and condoms.
Okay.
So when we're talking about... Because the entire world, there's plenty of different areas of the planet that don't have the same welfare stuff. They're still experiencing the same problem. Basically, when you give people contraception, when you give them condoms, the birth rate kind of plummets and it trends towards 2. There's maybe 2 or 3 countries. Yeah, there's 2 or 3 countries that have
worse in South
demographic replacement rate birth rates, and it's like Mongolia and Israel, right? And so Mongolia does that because they're right next to China, and they let's face it, they like banging and riding horses and stuff. And then Israel does it because they feel like they're constantly under threat because they underwent like a genocide or an ethnocide at the early of the 20th century. I almost guarantee you, if you gave them an environment in which they weren't under threat in suffering a recent ethnocide or genocide, their demographic replacement.
Okay. Hold on. You made the argument, right? It is this thing. The answer is never univariate, right? Like I agree that birth rates and family planning are made possible. It's not just to support the welfare state; it's also to support our economy.
Can I ruin everything by making a point? The birth rate of Gaza is higher than Israel.
Yes, that's absolutely true.
I would still say that
just set the chat on fire.
They're under threat.
I
was just joking about making an.
I agree that when you have contraception, right? When women enter the workforce, when modern hygiene for women products, become available, when indoor plumbing becomes available, when the birth control pill, that all of these things have an effect on the growth of families and the birth rate, right? What I am saying is that there is a chicken and egg scenario.
Sure.
That I agree that these things allow women to wait a longer time to have children, which lowers the range of time that they are fertile, right? Which of course lowers the amount of children that they tend to have over a period of time. Obviously, technological innovations in IVF and things like that extend that window to a certain degree, right? So both of these things are true. But what I am saying is that when men are no longer seen as providers because they work 9-to-5 jobs and massive chunks of their taxes go to prop up women and go to protect women. And then on top of that, they don't have the same resource accumulation. And also on top of that, there's no necessity for men, right? I absolutely agree that men have to go through trials and tribulations in order to become men, but there is no necessity. The state does everything for you. Whereas before, men knew that they needed to go out and bust ass if they wanted to make sure that they could take care of their parents and if they wanted to have a family.
Sure.
And all of these things being devoid of them have changed the way that women view men. Women do not view men in any level of respect, partially because they've checked out, but partially because they're not achieving things, but partially because they're protected.
But this is, okay, here's my point though. I hear what you're saying, but one of the things that you said was prop up and protect women. Now, this is through the state, through taxation, and therefore it feels more ephemeral, and therefore it's the negative sacrifice that you were talking about. You're paying for an altruism that you don't necessarily agree with, okay?
Yes.
I hear you. However, what I am here to say, which is going to be uncomfortable for young men, is suck it up, buttercup. Your previous generations also went through a bunch of garbage. The generation before that went through even more. The generation before that went through even more. And on top of that, if enough men check out of society and they start smoking pot, playing video games, not being productive, not paying their taxes, not et cetera, this is all going to fall apart. And
Agreed.
so this is
Agreed. Yeah.
This is
That's the easiest revolution ever, guys. You don't got to fight. You just got to sit around.
You got to sit around and do nothing because the entire economic system is going to collapse. Yeah. So what I'm saying is, if you do like eating good food, if you do like good entertainment, if you do like the ability to date women, if you do like a peaceful society in which you don't murder people, then you need to get up off your ass.
I agree with everything you're saying, but quick point, right? I'm sorry. Am I annoying?
No.
No, quick point, right? I agree with you that we need to teach that message to men. I agree that it's important. I agree with everything that you just said.
You just think the state's stealing from them?
No, what I'm saying is that the problem is if we're going to talk about pragmatics, then we have to be honest about pragmatics. No amount of education, no amount of you can spend billions on don't smoke cigarettes ads. And you know what happens? Barely the needle moves.
But generationally, I think this is a bad example because
oh my god,
generation is substantively down.
Let me finish. Okay.
It's a bad example.
It's not a bad example. Over time, over generations, it changed.
Sure.
For sure. Over the introduction of vaping, it changed to some degree. But the thing that has immediate impact, what we are talking about is incentives and behavior from the state, right? You can put out campaigns, you can talk to young men, you can do what you want with them, and you're going to have some effect, and I hope you do. I really hope you do, because I believe, just like you do, that those messages need to be sent to young men. But the problem is just like a gas tax, just like a cigarette tax, a tax on working, which is what we have, a gargantuan tax on building wealth, working businesses, etc., massively disincentivizes that behavior. And some classes and some fucking streamers telling them some things and a couple of we need to sell these things better is not going to have the same effect as the state's intervention.
And then I would go left wing, and then I would say that we need living wages. So,
So I think it is perfectly fine if there are young men out there that say, I'm going to argue for the same position as Fabian Liberty, because you want to fight for your country and you want to fight to change it. I accept that. I also think that some people may say, you know what, I've decided to protest by sitting around playing video games and smoking pot. But I also think that there are people, I've met them, who complain but don't want to engage. And my attitude for them is, my friend, you can easily go down to Mexico. You can go to Alaska. There's a great movie about it, Into the Wild. There is no requirement that you live within the system of roads, military, police, EMTs, clean running water, air conditioning, and water. Most jurisdictions have laws requiring that they provide water to you. Well, maybe not most, but it's because it's typical. I believe Arizona has a law. I could be wrong, but these Mojave states, if you walk into an establishment, they must provide water if they ask for it, because you die. So I look at it this we all have clean running water, even if you're homeless. You can walk into a Taco Bell and ask for a cup; they'll give you one. That's tremendous luxury. Clean running. You're not going to. People used to drink beer all the time because the water was dirty, and now we have clean running water everywhere. So there's a wealth, even if you just decide to do nothing. So it is fascinating to me when I encounter. Again, I'll say for your position, I want to stay in this country. I want to fight to change it. Absolutely commendable and respectable. You disagree with how the system operates, and you're going to stay here. And I assume you pay your taxes.
Well, I don't pay that many because I'm poor, but yeah.
No. But
that was going to be one of my points, you son of a bitch.
But this is my point. You don't like it. You're engaging with it to try and change it versus something that you believe would be better. The people I meet who argue that, I don't want to, I shouldn't, I'll be like, you have the option not to.
Yeah.
You can go to a bunch of different countries.
South Sudan.
It's hard to get to, but yeah, I think there's other choices.
That's a fair point.
It's a war zone, but besides that.
But you could go to, I got to be honest, there's areas of the Rockies, ain't nobody's going to bother you.
Sure.
And then the argument I hear from people is, why should I leave my society? You were born into a society that, again, was built by other people, and you have been asked. Let's equate it this way. You are growing up in a house, and your parents say, it's time to pay rent. You say, that's not fair. Why should I have to? You're free to leave. You don't have to stay.
Yeah, no, agreed. Yeah. No, the most anarcho-capitalist societies in America right now would be the Amish, right? And not the click clack,
or
but the beachy Amish, right? Those that still use cell phones, still work regular jobs, etc. Those are going to be
down the street. They sell pet milk. They call it.
Pet milk. Well, they call it pet milk because the laws make it illegal for them to sell their fucking milk.
I've been on the internet for way too long. I thought it was something else.
No. No. It's just another way to try and circumnavigate the massive.
It's illegal to sell raw milk.
Sure.
So, but if it's for pet consumption, the jars say not for human consumption, and people walk up, buy a bottle, crack it, and drink it.
I like civilization more than I like this.
I'm all for.
Sorry, real quick. I want to talk about the protesters who were smoking pot and playing video games. So here's the thing. I'm not a religious literalist. My mom will be disappointed in that. I'm like a deist. Okay. But I think that religion oftentimes shows you the moral systems in which to live that will make your life, generally speaking, better if you follow the system versus not following it. So with the protesters who are checking out a society, smoking pot, playing video games or whatever, the main thing that I would say to them is you are the one who's going to suffer. There have been hundreds of thousands or millions of years of evolution and human beings and all that kind of stuff that led to your creation. As far as we know, we only have this one life guaranteed, and you are wasting your time, you're wasting your energy, you're not finding your wife, you're not having kids, you're not perpetuating the society, you're not contributing. And so what's going to happen is that's cute when you're 25 and you're a NEET. It's cute to see Nick Fuentes and his little Groiper army or whatever being NEETs in their early 20s. It's not cute when you're 50. No one wants to be friends with a 50-year-old who smokes pot and plays video games and doesn't have a family and isn't bought into society. Nobody will want to be your friend.
But let me tell you, this is why this country will go communist. Now, let me clarify. There are a lot of variables affecting us right now that may prevent that, but we have two big phenomenons: the NEET phenomenon of males and the cat lady phenomenon of females.
Well, then we need to create a dating app where they can find each other.
But they don't like each other.
They should get over it.
They're opposite political ends of the spectrum, except on Israel. Israel. Maybe we could make a dating app for people who hate Israel, and then you'll bring the left and right together.
Left and right, horseshoe.
Yeah.
But here's my point. There are overwhelmingly, we are seeing largely liberal women. They don't have families. They're not having kids. They're going to require the state to fund them as they get older, more so than even Social Security recipients today who actually did have 2.5 kids. With the NEET bunch of males, they will be in the same boat. I just watched a movie last night, and it just came out. It's called The Rule of Jenny Penn. Did you guys hear of it?
I have not.
Jeffrey Rush and John Lithgow are, so there's a judge. He suffers a stroke on the bench while sentencing a guy, and they put him in rehab recovery, but he's getting worse. The elderly there are harassed by John Lithgow, who just beats and tortures. He's an old man who has fun beating and torturing people.
I thought this was a comedy.
It is a horrifyingly painful movie to watch. But John Lithgow is very funny, even though he's terrifying. And
all right.
The point is, there was a terrifying moment in this film where, as John Lithgow terrorizes his people, Jeffrey Rush asks another man why he won't speak up so they can put a stop to it. And he says, I don't want my children to see me differently. I don't want them to pity me. And outside of the idea of that, the issue is largely, even with children, you are in a home sustained partially by government. What happens to the people who have no children at all?
I think we're going to have to put them in communities and there's going to be abuse. Oh, I'm sorry. I think we're going to need to put them in communities and there's going to be abuse. Maybe, but I'll tell you this. The birth rate of Europe right now, I pulled it up while we were talking, is like 1.3. Yeah.
No, there's going to be a large a large elderly population.
Without the people to sustain them, yeah.
But what happens when it comes to the electorate? They are going to vote and say, we get your stuff.
Yeah.
And what are the young people going to say?
No.
Exactly. And then what happens? This is going to
societal collapse
in a terrifying way. I don't know if you can remedy that. How without people to fund Social Security and with young people largely saying they will check out, how do you pay for the larger elderly population?
I have an answer. Will you indulge me a yap, please?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
I've been waiting for a while, but I've had my fair share of screaming.
Okay. All right. Cool. So a lot of people hate the concept of 15-minute cities, that it doesn't, appeal to their sense of independence. I think that our leaders are totally failing us by thinking about the future of society. And so I think that if we actually designed like communities, like for instance, like a mall as an example, like if you had apartment blocks that were all built around a central commercial area, if you had the agricultural areas and industrial areas on the outside, if you made commuting very simple and easy, you can either walk or you can ride a bike or ride a car to these things, so you become very efficient as a system. And then also if you make these societies, these micro communities integrated, where not only are there young families that are raising their family with an intelligently designed community that makes having a family good, but you also have the old people be a part of the community where they have access to the central commercial district and they also have an area to live that's easy to visit. There will be people who will reject this because they don't want to live in an intentional community that's very close. But I think a lot of people, for instance, the people who have no family, have no friends, no whatever, they can get up, walk to the mall, drink coffee, drink tea, hang out with the younger generation.
Where's the money from?
Where's the money from? I would say investors.
No. The money for the elderly to buy coffee.
Probably the social safety net, as we were talking about.
But if you need 2.5 to 4 workers in the system to fund,
you're not going to like my answer. So what I would
tax the youth young more.
Well, no, I would say that I think you're going to have to tax them less because the resources are going to be more efficient. But basically, we would try to get society back up to 2.5 birth rates. That's obviously going to fail. And then what we do is we open up immigration. So I would try to get the birth rate back up to 2. And then I would, whatever thing we're missing, I would use immigration to shore up.
So the important thing to understand in technological advancement, resources getting cheaper or technology getting better, it's a population growth requirement. So there's 2 things required for technological advancement: is a larger population and a more efficient workforce at the same time. Right now, the United States has and the world has a massive population, which allows for technological expansion, but it's particularly inefficient. If we were to maximize worker specialty for the entire planet, we would probably be 3,000 years more advanced technologically. But the issue is ultimately this. There was a time in human history where a human could know everything a human could know. Today, it's impossible in every respect. In fact, I implore all of you watching to look at how they make i9 processors for computers, and you will get lost so fast. We are quickly approaching a point where, indeed, we are approaching a point where technology, even among the specialists, is exceeding beyond their ability to understand it, such as making a TV requires dozens of different specialties that could not make it on their own. As population begins to rescind, the formula actually, the math actually dictates we will see technological deflation, meaning you will get more expensive TVs, less technological advancement, things will become more expensive.
The good news is that we're in a pretty good. The good news is we're in a pretty good standard of living right now. I yield the floor.
Okay, all right, fair enough. I was just like, all right, yeah. So, listen, I'm not a fan of 15-minute cities that are centrally planned by the state. I think that's a terrible idea. If investors want to
voluntary,
if investors want to try them out and see what they work like, maybe, because I mean, like
Epic City,
huh?
Like Epic City.
Which one is that?
That one they're talking about in Texas?
Oh my God, the fucking Muslim one! Jesus Christ!
Well, they're allowed to do it. Oh my God.
But seriously, if they have food, if they have shelter, if they have community, if they have all that kind of stuff, if it's a successful, vibrant community, what's the problem?
Libertarians can rag on the religious fundamentalists that are building their cities, but look at the religious fundamentalists solving this problem.
Okay, again,
and I like it.
Well, yeah, I don't think. I have a lot of problems with Islam. Fuck Islam. I'll just say that.
Jeez.
And then just move on from it. And then if you're like, well, how could
let's go back to policy,
right? If you say, how could you possibly say that? I don't know, like Google. Anyways,
let's go back to the policies.
Yeah, but no, like, so when you're talking about centrally planning it, no. If you're talking about like letting investors do that, that might be something that people agree with. I do think that there's a little bit too much hate towards the concept of 15-minute cities because it's being sold to them with like ads from the World Economic Forum, and they know that it's like fucking eat the pods, right? But Robert Putnam's Bowling Alone, right? That is really kind of the thesis of that book, if you've read it, is the concept that social capital has been destroyed. And one of the major reasons social capital has been destroyed is because people don't work in the neighborhood they live in. They don't shop in the neighborhood that they live in, right? So there's all of this commuting. And so your neighbors are like this minor part of your life. I don't know that 15-minute cities actually solve that in any meaningful way. It would be an interesting experiment that I'd like to go through. And like, if we're talking about solutions,
it could be hella private.
It could be, right? Like again, I think we're kind of like veering off of the topic a little bit, but that's fine. Maybe we beat it to death a little bit. I think that there are opportunities to do that. I will simply say this: if you want investment in 15-minute cities, if you want private companies to do that, you're going to have to start deregulating especially housing market.
We got a few minutes left, and I just wanted, the reason I brought up my question is, with population decline, it is predicted by many Social Security will simply cease to exist at some point.
Yeah, probably.
So what do we do to keep it? And do you need to even do anything at all?
Get the birth rate up to 2.15, and
that's not going to happen.
Immigration as a store gap.
Immigration
as a stopgap. Sorry, can I expand on this because it is really important to Groypers? So you go, I'll go afterwards. I'll take a note.
All right. So, you do need to do something about it, right? Because every day that we don't do something about it and then we continuously spend money, there are other problems than just that, right? We weaken our currency with inflation, right? And we're going through so much inflation, increase in the money supply and things like that, which is affecting, and it's because of these entitlement spending that we have, right? And the weaker we devalue the dollar, what happens if Saudis stop using the U.S. dollar to trade reserve currency, right? Like there are a lot of other problems that can occur along the way of like population collapse. I can't predict the market or what the market will or won't do, right? But this is a problem now, and it's a problem that's ballooning. And like I do agree that like it's going to come to some type of clash, but I don't want the streets to burn, you know?
I want to answer the question.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So, I worked with plenty of dissident right-wing folks. I think that they can be descriptively accurate while prescriptively insane. And so as a result, you're saying like, well, what do? We have a collapsing birth rate. We have an economy that's based on it. So what I would say is we try to maximize the birth rate as much as possible. I think right now, European whites are at 1.5. I think that Hispanics are at like 1.8 or 2 point something. It's very close. Anyways, the point is that you would try to get the domestic population from 1.5 to 2, and then you would try to supplement with immigration. I think one of the reasons why we have had a cultural crisis, why we've had mass immigration crises, is because the central governments of Europe and America realized that we had an economic problem. And so as a result, they allowed these waves of immigration in order to shore up economic problems, but they never consulted the population. But they never said, we don't have enough workers and we need them, therefore you have to let these people in. They never said it.
But I will also add, it's it's a first-ordered thought process which fails. So,
what do you mean?
What we've found, and I'll even cite Conor, that it didn't work. We thought that bringing these immigrants was going to actually bolster the tax base and the middle class. It did not work. It did the opposite, actually.
How so?
Lowering the value of labor. It's pretty much
it's the lowering of value, lowering the value of labor, creating a vast wealth disparity, haves and have-nots, and the people who came in are consuming more than they're producing. So you're creating...
That would be my problem, or that I would object to.
It's marginal propensity to consume is over.
It's not actually resulting... So, for instance, one of the simple anecdotes is Gen Z is struggling to get jobs where they can start families and buy homes.
Yep.
We are giving immigrants luxury housing in New York City in these hotels.
Insane, yep.
And so that system didn't work. What ends up happening is they bring in as many immigrants as possible. They legalize illegal immigration, essentially. That is, through executive order, actions that would otherwise be illegal were deemed not illegal because we're going to call it asylum instead. But then they
CPB, yeah.
What they did was they said, we're going to give you an asylum hearing, a temporary status, but then they got rid of these court cases and just basically said, you're here. These individuals did not integrate properly. You can't just put a person there and say, hope that fixed the tax base. So it's actually creating a worse problem. Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon. So subscribe and come hang out.